What's up, y'all? My name is JR, and for those of you who don't already know, I'm a huge movie and TV nerd. If you're new here, I appreciate you taking the time to check out my channel. I hope you'll consider sticking around and joining the film community I'm trying to build here on YouTube. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving my reaction and review of Zach Cregger's mystery horror film, Weapons. And just so you guys know, this video will contain some mild spoilers, so if you haven't gotten around to going to see this movie yet, and you don't want to know anything that happens in it, you might want to exit this video now. And with that being said, no more wasting time. Let's get into it. Weapons is an American-made mystery horror film co-produced, written, and directed by Zach Cregger. The film stars Josh Brolin, Julia Garner, Alden Ehrenreich, Austin Abrams, Carrie Christopher, Benedict Wong, and Amy Madigan. Its plot follows the seemingly inexplicable case of 17 children from the same classroom who mysteriously run away on the same night, having been apparently abducted by an unseen force. Now, Weapons was released in the United States by Warner Bros. Pictures on August the 8th of this year. And the film received critical acclaim with strong praise for Cregger's direction, unique story structure, and performances of the cast, particularly Garner, Brolin, Wong, and Madigan. And so far, the film has grossed over $70 million worldwide. Now, at the time of the making of this video, the movie has a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 233 critic reviews, and its popcorn meter currently sits at 87% with over 2,500 verified ratings. The film has a Metascore of 81 on Metacritic based on 46 critic reviews, and it has a user score of 7.4 based on 103 user ratings. And finally, the movie has a 7.9 out of 10 on IMDb with almost 2,400 ratings. Now, I heard about this film a few months ago, and I'll be honest, it kind of fell off my radar until about a few weeks ago. But I went to the theater with an open mind, especially because Julia Garner and Josh Brolin were a part of this. So, though I don't exactly classify myself as a horror enthusiast, I was truly interested in the potential of this particular story. And now, after having watched the film in its entirety, I just want to say that this film was not at all what I was expecting when I went and bought the ticket. Now, I found the vehicle by which this story is being told to be wholly unreliable, which begs the question, why tell the story that way in the first place? The narrator of this film, played by Scarlett Scherer, and the only reason I know that is because she is the person listed on IMDb, but she is both unseen and unknown throughout this story, and furthermore, it turns out, she has absolutely nothing to do with the story itself, which made me leave the theater completely scratching my head about the narrative choice to utilize a narrator in the first place. But stick a pin in that because I'm going to circle back before this video is done. Now, the film utilizes a sort of Rashomon structure as we're basically being told the story of the children's disappearance and the investigation that follows, if you can even call it that, through the eyes of several characters directly involved in the event in some way, shape, or form. And you guys should know the police investigation is given so little attention outside of being mentioned a handful of times throughout this story, despite the fact that it's the entire linchpin of said story. Finding out what happened to the kids should be a major plot point in the story, but instead, Cregger wants you to focus on how the children's disappearance affected a handful of people in the town, which I have no issue with at large on its face, right? I just think there were opportunities to bring the police investigation back into the forefront of the story, especially once we took a look at Paul's perspective. But I digress. Now, the good news is that I did think that the way the story unfolded worked fairly well for the film. And though, because I, write these things for a living, I'm kind of able to roll the windows down on these types of things. So I kind of figured out what the hell was going on pretty quickly in the movie just by how it was written and kind of, even dissecting some of the small writing and stuff like that. But I do think most people will be kept out of the loop just long enough for them to enjoy this particular aspect of the film. Now, the bad news is that, especially where Paul was concerned, I thought his character arc was left grossly unfinished, and there was just no excuse for it in my opinion. I'm not going to go too deep into what happens to Paul, and I hate to get super spoilery on you guys, but he cheats on his wife. The daughter of the police chief he happens to work for gets caught by his wife, and then crickets. Bad screenwriter. Now, I thought the acting was pretty good all around, even by young Carrie Christopher, who plays Alex. I found the character work here to be particularly strong, with the small writing being useful in both teaching us about the characters in ways that felt natural. I tell you guys, I like natural dialogue is my preferred, method of having characters speak. And it also moved the story along. I found the direction to be interesting as well, and I thought it was an overall asset to the visual style of the movie. But, narratively, there was just too much missing here for my liking. Too many stones left unturned. I always tell you guys that as a writer, throughout the story, you are posing questions to the audience, and because of that fact, you owe them answers by the end of the film. Especially in a film like this, wherein the rules of this story are not of this world, right? You have some kind of magical, mystical force at work. You have to explain it. And Cregger's does not. And for a film that leaves so much unanswered, it's entirely too long. This film is over 2 hours long, and you still don't answer all the questions? Bad screenwriter. And on top of that, the tone of this film begins to shift quite suddenly as the story goes from a film that I'll admit is truly unnerving at the start. So much of this film takes place in muted light, in the dark, dreams and things of that nature. And it really, really is unnerving in a dark theater. It really does kind of hit you. But it went from a film that had the chance to be kind of terrifying to a little bit of a clown show by the end, especially as it pertains to the film's villain, a person we never really get the opportunity to try to understand, which I thought was a mistake. And even her aesthetic, I felt, was a missed opportunity again to make this film truly terrifying. And on top of all that, we really don't even know why what happened needed to happen in the first place, which is absolutely a screenwriting no-no, because I tell you guys again, it's the why that ultimately will decide more than anything else whether you have a good movie or not. And the why here was just much too vague. We have no idea, no earthly idea why the villain of this story shows up in the town that she shows up in, and why she does what she does, other than her saying that it'll make her feel better. But how? We understand she's sick, but sick with what? What's going on? And, Craigers just don't tell us nothing, right? It's none of our damn business, I suppose. Now, the god-awful final image, man, really fucking pissed me off. I hate to, say a bunch of bad words, but I was really upset. Because in it, we see that Archer finally finds his son and takes him home. While our narrator gives us details about how the story ends, instead of showing us. Show, don't tell. Bad screenwriter. But this goes back to the opening image and the choice to make use of the narrator to begin with, right? Again, we don't see her, and you would have thought that we would eventually have seen her at the end of the film, maybe talking to the authorities about what had happened in the town, right? So as to bring the police investigation, like I was saying, back into the forefront of the story. Especially seeing as how she's been set up from a narrative perspective to be the one telling us this story from the beginning. She's the one talking. But it also turns out that she was not one of the children that was affected by the hex placed upon them by the villain. And we know that because she is simply listed again on IMDb as narrator. So with that in mind, let me ask, how the fuck does she even know enough about what happened to be telling us the story in the first place, right? If she wasn't one of the kids who got kidnapped, how does she know? And speaking of our beloved narrator, in the opening of the film, she makes the claim that the children all left their houses and they never came back. But at the end, she claims that all the parents found their kids. So which one is it? Right? And I hate to come down so hard on a kid, but again, she was an unreliable narrator. And look, I write these things again for a living. So maybe Cregger's just made a mistake in the script, right? Sometimes you write a script a certain way and then you go back and you rewrite and you rewrite and you rewrite and you rewrite. And sometimes you forget that you've changed certain things. But what do I also tell you guys? When you change one thing, it changes everything. So if you're going to do a bunch of rewrites, you would better have your note cards in order, because that's really where you can fuck up script up. Like, no lie. If you get to the point where you're on the 6th or 7th or 8th rewrite and you start thinking about the first version of the script or the second or the third, and you forget that you've changed and shifted things, and that's where you really can make a mess if you're not careful. And here, like I said, maybe Cregger just made a mistake and the scriptie didn't catch it. But this mistake completely fucks the entire premise of the movie. So you can see how the use of the narrator makes absolutely no sense now, right? And this is why I think the choice in and of itself was a pretty big creative and narrative mistake, right? Just tell the story and leave the narrator out of it, right? Because he really screwed that part up, I just gotta say. Anyway, overall, I'd give this film a 55%, or a 5.5 if you're thinking IMDb score. Look, most of the ingredients were here on this one. There was a lot that worked here in this film, but there was just too much of some things and not enough of others, and that's what ultimately doomed this movie, in my opinion, right? Even the title of this film prepares you for something that never quite shows up, right? Weapons, and though some critics claim to love the title of the film, but I just didn't think it was all that clever, right? And I've also seen some calling this movie the scariest of the year, and I don't think it will ultimately be that either, because The Conjuring Last Rites will be here in a few weeks, and judging by the trailer that I saw, in this movie, I might add, I might want somebody to go with me to see that one, because, you know, when it comes to like the spooky stuff, like ghosts and stuff like that, I kind of be like, I don't know, man. Anyway, I can't quite say I'd recommend this film. I wouldn't even say that this is a film I'd watch more than one time. You know, so unless you're one of those people who are just thirsty for horror and you can't wait a few weeks for something a bit more proven to show up to grace our theater screens. But in the event that you're not a 10 trips to the movies a year kind of person, I'd maybe tell you to sit this one out. But what do you guys think? Have you had a chance to go and see Weapons yet? If you have, what did you think of the story's structure? How'd you feel about the story's villain? Did you leave with all your questions answered? Please let me know in the comments. And for those of you that might be new to the channel, be sure to like and share this video. If you really like the content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. You can also now support the channel by leaving a super thanks. If you should be so inclined, I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, I have a new channel where I'm going to be moving a lot of my shorts. You can find me at the Mad Screenwriter Shorts there. Also, be sure to go and check out themadscreenwriter.com for more television and film reviews and info on my upcoming film projects. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got screenplays to write. And I'll catch y'all in the next video.